Hey everybody, Seth Chapman here with Living Large and Tiny Living. And I'll go ahead and start with that title that I put on this video. No, it's not the apology that you're more than likely thinking of. It's more of like a reasoned argument. But I have been reading some of the negative comments on my videos. And, I don't think that they were probably intended to help me make better videos or encourage me to make videos, but they kind of did. Because they reminded me that I hadn't answered some of the big questions of how I got into tiny houses and how I got the money to build the tiny house. And so I figured I'd go ahead and answer those questions in this video and go ahead and get that video out there because I haven't had time to at this point to do it. So the first question then is, how did I get involved in tiny houses? So it started about 7 years ago or so when I found some plans online for a 20-foot bumper pole. So significantly smaller than what I ended up building, but it still got me into tiny houses. And I really wanted to build one at that point, but I didn't have the skills, time, or resources to do so, and so it was not going to happen for a good while. But I did start learning the skills to how to do it, and I also started learning and deciding what I wanted to put into a tiny house once I did get that chance to do it. So I was kind of in a pre-planning stage, I suppose. And so during that time, I started with smaller projects, like little welding projects or woodworking projects, and ended up with a dining room table at one point. So those things, they taught me the basic skills and how to use the tools and kind of gave me an idea of some of the difficulties and challenges that I'd face while building the tiny house. So that really helped during the tiny house build. But throughout that process, I entered those projects that I did into 4-H competitions. And then, I guess it was 2 years ago or so, year and a half, something like that now, I asked the competition, the heads over the competition, if I could build a tiny house and enter it into the competition, because there really wasn't a category for that at the time. And so they said if I did it, I would have a spot for it. So that kind of sparked my interest and then launched me into building the tiny house. And not too long after that, I had bought the trailer and started working on building the tiny house. So I'm very thankful for them saying yes, because otherwise the tiny house might not have been built. But of course, there were some other aspects of the tiny house and having the tiny house that had to propel me forward, other than just being able to do it in the competition. And one of those was the cost aspect of college. Now, dorms for college can easily be $4,000 or $5,000 a year, depending on what college and what dorm. Sorry, $4,000 to $5,000 per semester. So you're looking at $8,000 to $10,000 per year. And when you want to go to med school, you have 8 years of college. That's pretty expensive. So a tiny house will definitely save some money there. But that sort of leads into the second question of, how did you get the money to build the tiny house? They're not cheap ventures to build a tiny house. And with that, some people have kind of maybe accused or questioned or whatever you want to call it, thinking that I am just really rich or something, which that would be really great, but that's not quite the case. So what I did was I went out to local businesses and donors, and they donated a lot of materials. So flooring, cabinets, countertops, roofing, solar panels, water heaters. A lot of it was donated. And I'm very, very thankful for that, because that significantly decreased the cost in building the tiny house. And is what made it possible to build the tiny house. But even with those diminished costs, it's still a pretty costly thing to build the tiny house. So I understand where people are coming from, saying kind of incredulous that it could be done, but I think that the problem is they're looking at it the wrong way. Because a lot of people spend money on different extracurricular activities and even in school, and there's a lot of costs that add up here and there and here and there. But if you add all those together, that the tiny house became sort of my extracurricular activity for 9 months, and so those costs just went into that. But that doesn't quite make up for the entire cost of what we put into the tiny house. But then that extra part is really, it's really just an investment in my future in college time, because that'll save a lot of money throughout the college and even after college, where I can live in it throughout college, a little after, and then even possibly sell it after that point and recoup some of that money. So if you're considering it, and in that way, it makes a lot of sense and is definitely worth having to spend that money on building it and building it well. But then the final point is, did you actually build the tiny house? Now, I'll give you the details and the facts of what happened, and then you can decide for yourself whether or not I built it. I know that I built it, but I can't make up your mind for you as to whether you think I did or not. So if you want to see the time lapse of the entire build, you can check that out in the description below. But I'll go ahead and just kind of sum it up for you. Throughout the entire process, I had to have help from my parents to build it, because it's not a one-person job. It's going to take 2 or 3 people, unless you're willing to spend 10 years building your tiny house trying to do it by yourself. Because things like siding and trying to hang sheetrock and trying to install things, it's just too difficult to do by yourself. When you have siding, you're standing on one side of a 12-foot board and somebody else is standing on the other side. You're going to need probably 2 people to build a tiny house. So I had to have my parents help through that. And also the things that I didn't know, I had to have them teach me, and so that way I could learn throughout the process. But beyond that, there wasn't really any other help except for the sheetrock. A professional sheetrocker and painter came in and helped me and was teaching me how to do the sheetrock. And so we hung the sheetrock together and then mudded it, and then we painted it. So I had to have help there as well. But beyond that, well, there's the cabinets. The cabinets, the custom cabinet builder came out, and I worked with him and designed what I was looking for in the cabinets. And then he went back, built them, and then I helped him install it all when they were finished, and to put them into the tiny house. So that was about it as far as help that I needed. And again, you can go ahead and check out the time lapse in the description below if you want to see the entire process. So I guess it's really up to you to decide whether I built it or not. But I know that I did, and I suppose that's the important part. But I suppose that really answers the 3 big questions of: how did I get involved? How did I get the money together to do it? And then, did I do it? But if you have any other questions about it, go ahead and stick those down in the comments below, and I'll get to those and hopefully answer your questions there as well. But that's about it for this video. So if you like the video, you can like and subscribe and stay up to date with further YouTube videos that'll be coming out, kind of giving some more details on the build and any future changes that I make. And if you would like, you can go over to Facebook or Instagram and follow Living Large and Tiny Living there as well. I occasionally have some updates on there that don't make it onto YouTube. But that's all for this video, so I'll catch you on the next video.